Today we're making not only one of my favorite things to eat, but also one of, in my opinion, the most fun things to make. If y'all are like me, there's some nights that you really just don't feel like cooking a huge meal, and you wish that there was something easy you could just throw together. That would be pizza. My whole childhood, I didn't realize you could make your own pizza. That was one of those magical things that you bought in the freezer section and heated up in your oven, or you went to Domino's. Along with like frozen Salisbury steaks and pot pies. To me, there is no wrong way to pizza. In the words of one of my favorite people, Fez likes them big, Fez likes them small, Fez likes them all. Let's start off by going over some of the things extra that you're gonna need besides the ingredients. I personally like to use my pizza stone. However, if you don't have one, please don't go buy one just for one pizza. Unless you try this recipe, love it, and then are gonna make pizza all the time, don't waste your money because you can absolutely prepare this on just a regular baking sheet. Also, something that I like to use that you don't have to is a little bit of cornmeal. No, not on the pizza. I like to sprinkle it on the pizza stone before I lay down the dough. It just adds a little bit of extra texture to the bottom. If you're ready, let's get baking. We are going to start with 2 cups of all-purpose flour in a bowl set aside. In your microwave safe container, you are going to put 3/4 cups of water and warm it up. Not hot, room temperature a little over, baby bath water. To that, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of sugar and 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. While our yeast is activating, we are going to take 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil and add it to the 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Our yeast is ready. You can see that thick foamy yeast cake on top and see that it's clouding the water and all these little particles coming down and floating up. Also, you will note that this is a very old measuring cup. Once our yeast is ready, we are going to pour that into the olive oil and flour mixture. Using your rubber spatula, go ahead and do the initial mix. Once you have it to this stage where it's shaggy and has come together, we're going to go ahead and turn it out onto the counter, making sure to get as much of the remaining flour mixture as we can. Now that you have it here, you're going to pull up your sleeves and get to kneading. One of the ways that I prefer to knead is a 2-handed knead. Some people do it with just one. Nothing wrong with that, but I just like the control that you have with using both hands. Basically what I'm doing is grabbing this side of the dough, the far side, pulling it over and pushing it in with the heel of my hand. It's pretty easy once you get going to find your rhythm, and we're going to do this for about 8 minutes. While we're kneading, let's talk about sauce. What we're going to do today, simply because I have everything in my refrigerator for it currently, is an Alfredo. Now, my Alfredo recipe is one that I've been working on for nearly 10 years. The first few times that I did it were complete and utter disasters. It's not a particularly hard recipe, however, it's extremely important to learn the technique and the science behind why an Alfredo works and what makes it not work. Once you've learned how to make an Alfredo, I have found that it helps with a lot of other techniques in the kitchen, like making a gravy or getting a roux correct for a gumbo, or working on thickening up a soup. Essentially, once you've learned how to make a successful bechamel or a white sauce made with roux and milk, that really transfers over to so much in your kitchen. Fun fact about a bechamel that I didn't originally know is that it was considered one of the mother sauces of French cooking. Look out, Julia Childs. My 35 subscribers are coming for you. Now that we have kneaded for approximately 8 minutes, you will notice that this dough is extremely soft. Look at how squishy this is. You can see it just in the texture and how it's holding the shape of my fingers in the dough. That's what you're looking for. Once you've achieved that, we're going to roll it up into a ball, gathering up all of the sides, bringing it together in the middle, pinching it similarly to a dumpling, like this. Flip it over and then start turning in small circles, bringing it in as you pull into a taut ball. Grease the bowl that you mixed it in, transfer the dough back over, put a hand towel on it, and let it rise for about an hour. We will begin with a skillet on medium-high heat and 3 tablespoons of butter. Once that butter is melted and it's starting to kind of bubble slightly, we're going to add 1 to 2 tablespoons of flour. We're going to start with about 1.5. Your goal here is to get all of that flour incorporated in with the butter. If you've ever made a homemade gravy, this is a very, very similar technique. To that, we're going to go ahead and add the remaining 1/2 a tablespoon of flour for a total of 2. To this mixture, I'm going to add approximately 1/4 cup of heavy cream. And then 3/4 cups of milk. Begin to stir this around, making sure that all of that butter and flour mixture is breaking down. I have this on medium-high heat and I'm stirring until it is all incorporated and begins to thicken. The most important thing to note here is do not, under any circumstances, add that cheese until this sauce has cooled down. If you do not allow enough time for the bechamel to cool down before you add the cheese, the sauce will immediately break. There are many reasons that a cheese sauce could break. One could be that you had too much fat in the skillet and you didn't add enough flour to absorb that fat. The other is that it's too hot when you add the cheese. And the reason why is you're causing those protein strands to contract and clump up. Another thing can be that you added too much acid. Here's the secret. There are some ways to fix a broken sauce. It's never going to be as good as it would have if it hadn't broken. One way you can fix a broken sauce is to cool it off, put it over in a bowl and use either a hand blender or an immersion blender and just beat it until it starts to thicken back up. Now that our sauce is starting to thicken, we are going to drop that heat down all the way to low. The sauce coats the back of a spoon. That's the texture that you're looking for. Now that we have allowed the sauce 5 to 7 minutes to cool, it is obviously still warm, however, it's not hot. We can go ahead and begin adding Parmesan cheese 1 handful at a time until we've achieved the thickness that we're looking for. I would say the most important 2 rules is make sure the bechamel has cooled down before you add the cheese and continually stir. Not only is that going to help the sauce come together, but it ensures that nothing is sitting on the bottom of the skillet getting too hot for too long. You'll know your sauce is ready when you drag a spoon through it and there's a trail. Here's a fun little thing. When you've grated your Parmesan for your Alfredo, if you get down to the very, very bottom rind, don't throw that away. Wrap it up in some plastic wrap and put it in your refrigerator, because later, if you're gonna make a marinara sauce, you can put this down and let it steep with the tomatoes and it'll add a nutty and cheesy flavor. Let's talk toppings. One of my favorite is to take a head of garlic, break it down, keeping them inside the shell, place them on a baking sheet, cover them with a generous amount of olive oil and a tiny bit of salt. Place it inside of an oven at 450 degrees for approximately 20 minutes. You're not imagining that. It is an accordion. Yeah. We are also going to add about a handful of some baby spinach, and I like to use Roma tomatoes on mine. And I just like to cube those up. This is the song of my people. Don't judge me, it's just for a minute. I'll give it back. Along with the roasted garlic and the spinach, we've now got our Roma tomatoes diced. This is actually a couple teaspoons of fig preserve. We've got ricotta cheese that we're gonna crumble on, and then salt and pepper. While our garlic's roasting, I'm gonna go ahead and place my pizza stone on the bottom shelf of the oven and let it start coming up to temperature at 450. The smell of roasted garlic truly is a religious experience for me. I have transferred it from the pan into this bowl to allow it to cool. Once it is cool, I'll be able to just peel this paper right off, and then we're gonna dice it up. We have removed the pizza stone from the oven now that it is up to temperature, and I am taking a tiny bit of cornmeal and just sprinkling it around the stone. And then we're gonna place our dough on top. As you can see, the dough has more than doubled. It's extremely soft and smooth. We're gonna punch it down, remove it from the bowl, and we're actually gonna split it in half. This makes 2 pizzas, which, let's face it, is pretty convenient considering it would be a huge missed opportunity if I didn't try to like pizzeria style spin this. I mean, I think we're kind of getting somewhere. I can't help but feel like that's a problem. Let's take the other half and then start gently stretching it out with our fingers. I do a preliminary stretch on the counter because that stone really is hot and you don't really want to be messing with it too terribly much while it's on there. Transfer it over to our stone and then pull very gently, stretching out the edges. Our dough is ready. We're going to take our Alfredo sauce and we are going to spoon some over the top, smearing it around. I like to get it all the way up to the crust. You want to resist the urge to put too much sauce on here, because if you do, then it's just gonna flop out and sop out the center of this pizza dough. You want it to stay crusty. Here's where the freeform art begins. We're gonna take some of our tomatoes and just spread those around. The best thing about making a pizza at home is it really is the perfect thing to do with kids. So if you have kids and you want to get them involved and they're not busy playing an accordion, you should really let them help you make a pizza. Next, I like to kind of sandwich in some of my spinach. Okay, we're going to take some of our garlic that we roasted that I minced up and spread it over the top. For some richness, I'm going to add a few dollops of ricotta cheese. You could use mozzarella if you have it. I love goat cheese, but I'm out right now. As well as, well, really any type of crumbly, dry, or creamy cheese. A feta would be great also. Lastly, but certainly not least, I am actually going to drop a few little drops of fig preserve. The sweetness is really going to pair well with the roastiness of the garlic, the creaminess of the ricotta, and also the tanginess and brightness of the fresh tomatoes. The last thing I do before putting it in the oven is cracking a little bit of fresh cracked pepper over the top. We are now going to place our pizza inside of a 450-degree oven from anywhere between 12 and 20 minutes, just depending on the crust. It's time. I repeat, it's time. It's just... You can't say that that's not one of the most beautiful pizzas you have ever seen. I mean, look at the colors, guys, the colors. All the colors. There it is, our thin crust pizza. And let's be honest, it's the perfect thin crust. The actual bottom is thin, but the top has plenty of dipability. The best thing about pizza is that anything can go on it. I mean, you really could just look in your fridge, see what you have, and then make something up. That's what makes pizza so amazing. Anything goes. Listen, if people like ham and pineapple pizza, you could literally pick whatever's in your refrigerator and you'd be fine. No matter what you're topping, get baking, y'all.